Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. John Douillard, and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove ancient medical wisdom with modern science. And today, I want to invite you to my podcast coming up on Monday with Dr. Christiane Northrup, who's an old dear friend of mine who's written many, many books on women's health. And she has a brand new book coming out called Dodging Energy Vampires. Dodging Energy Vampires, which is a book that she's written about how people who are highly sensitive, have a lot of radar, empaths, who feel everything, are really kind of the shamans and the seers and the carriers of the spiritual torch, if you will, how they can sometimes be easily abused or taken advantage of by people who are very controlling and very manipulative, thus energy vampires. I've written a lot about Ayurvedic psychology. I'm extremely passionate about that. There's a whole section on my website at LifeSpa.com where there's many, many articles about Ayurvedic psychology in the emotional health section. You can read about that. And the whole point of Ayurveda was that we are like the sun. Our nature is to give and to love and to care. And the more we do that, the more we get filled up. It's sort of like this, we don't need to get loved or be loved. We need to somehow figure a way to actually be love and be that radiant factor. And that is something that I truly believe. But in Ayurveda, they also talk about the protective koshas, the sheaths around that very delicate, powerful heart, that center of your being, that we wrap around with our mind to use emotion to control us and protect us and to create personality traits that we can project on the screen that help us feel more safe and secure. And a lot of us in life end up projecting old protective patterns that we created as a young child, as adults on the screen, that are maybe not serving us anymore. So a lot of us end up doing a lot of the same dumb things again and again and again. And we create, Ayurveda calls it the great barrier sheath, a wall between your heart and your mind, your mental kosha, or your mental sheath. We create this wall around you so nobody can penetrate that. No one can access that. Well, empaths, as in Dr. Christiane Northrup's book, don't really have that wall. They don't have the great barrier sheath, and therefore are more vulnerable to being manipulated and controlled by people who are kind of more armored up, more engaged, well-versed in manipulation and control. And so she writes a book about how to help us navigate that. In Ayurvedic medicine, there are 5 koshas, sheaths in the body. And one of the sheaths is your Anandamaya kosha, your bliss, your heart. The sun just wants to shine, give, love, care for. And then there's the wisdom sheath, the kosha that has to do with being wise or dumb. That's why they call it the wisdom sheath, also called the Vijnanamaya kosha, or the discernment sheath. So this is the sheath that empaths must develop, which is the ability, like a lotus flower, to open and close based on whether it's safe or not. So this is the discernment sheath, which wraps around the heart, the delicate source of your consciousness and your being. And then you have the great barrier sheath, which is the wall between your discernment sheath and your mind. And your mind's about emotion. Your mind's about mathematics. Everything has to equal. If I buy you a birthday present for $20 and you get me one from the dollar store, my mind quickly calculates that you owe me $19, otherwise I'm going to feel hurt. And if I feel hurt and they continue to do that, I'm going to create an emotional response to that. And I'm going to take that molecule of emotion, stick it in my fat cells, and that will remotely be there, pre-recorded stress response to make me think and do the same dumb stuff again and again and again in my life when stress comes my way. Like you go home for the holidays, you start meeting with family members and seeing in a while, and you're acting like a 4-year-old again. This is a very common experience, right? So this is how old emotional protective patterns get lodged in our body. Ayurveda calls it mental ama, this toxic stuff that stays in our fat cells, and it keeps us locked into behavioral patterns that come from the first 6 years of life. These are unconscious behavioral patterns that we continue to engage in as we live our adult life. One study showed that 95% of the things we think and say and do every single day come from the first impressions made in the first 6 years of life. So everybody said, this is crazy. We can't live a whole life unconsciously. We have to become conscious. And that's exactly what Ayurveda is about. And how we can become conscious by taking the armor off and letting the most powerful, the most delicate, maybe most vulnerable part of you out. In Christiane Northrup's book, she talks about the empaths who are vulnerable because they don't have that. We don't want to armor up and wall off with the great barrier she uses our mind to create patterns of behavior and manipulate back. We want to use our discernment sheath. And that is a sheath that allows us to have the ability to know when we're being manipulated and controlled and how to dial that back. And that's what Christiane Northrup's book is really about. How to master the discernment sheath, how to master the sheath of wisdom, where you become wise when you're actually functioning from your heart, filtering it through this protective discernment sheath and still allowing you to be you, or dumb when you allow yourself to wall off who you are and engage in a mental pattern of behavior emotionally that you created to give you more safety and security in your life. And you project that protective version of you on the screen for the rest of your life based on old emotional patterns of behavior, old molecules of emotion stuck in your fat cells as mental ama that are making us think and do the same dumb stuff again and again. So what her book is about, and we did a great interview, and that podcast interview comes on Monday, and I highly encourage you to all sign up for that. It's, of course, free. Our monthly podcasts are all for free. And it's a great resource for information. Her book is phenomenal. I really love it. And everything she writes seems to be just amazing. So I would highly recommend checking out her book, Dodging Energy Vampires. Definitely, if you want to learn more about it and hear her firsthand talking about it, check out her podcast, our podcast, on Monday evening, 5:30 Mountain Time. And also you can check out her book, which comes out this week, Dodging Energy Vampires. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.